Hello, people. Welcome back to another video by your good friend, Chad Marco, the Big Anarchy. Make sure you guys attack that like button and check out my other social media. And let's have a conversation. So this video is called the Digital ID. And, I actually recently did a podcast about this subject. You can find it on my Rumble channel where I go a bit more in depth. But, I wanted to make a condensed video about this specifically for my YouTube audience where I'm not ranting as much. And I'm sure you guys know what this is going to be about. Recently, there were some laws that were passed across the globe, really, that are going to have significant changes on how we are going to be participating in online spaces going into the future. In particular, there is the Online Safety Act from the UK, which is meant to protect children from, adult content online. We also saw legislation in Australia where they ban anyone under the age of 16 from being able to create social media profiles. We're seeing even some changes in the United States. I myself, I live in one of the states that have implemented these laws where pornographic websites have to ask for or really have to do a more stringent age verification process, which means like asking for your ID, a face scan or something like that. Now that's easy to get by with a VPN or just go to one of the more like underground porn sites. So that hasn't really been a big effect on me, but I think they're like, I'm not sure the exact number. I think about half the states in America have already passed these laws. And not only that, we're also seeing that specific websites are also beefing up their efforts in, age verification process. But now, of course, none of us here are dumb enough to think that these measures are meant for protecting children from the content they're exposed to online. Well, in some ways it is, but not in the way that they're selling it. But let's rewind a little bit, because I gotta flex a little bit, because I remember when these laws first started rolling out. It really started with the laws that are in effect in my state and Texas and places like that, where major porn sites are required to have a more effective age verification process to prevent children from getting on those sites. And so when these things first started happening, you guys know there is quite a sizable anti-porn movement. And so, the trad cucks, the conservatives, they were celebrating these measures because, they're so anti-porn. And they were like, yeah, fuck the Coomers, fuck the Gooners. And even from the very beginning, there were people who, even if they were anti-porn, they understood that this wasn't about preventing children from having access to porn. This is about normalizing the digital ID. And what's so funny about this, though, is that a lot of times when we start talking about these conspiracies, people want to look at you like you're crazy, like you're pulling stuff out of your ass. But right here, we have a perfect example of, thing happens, conspiracy theories, tell you what it is, people are in denial, and then like a year or two later, boom, here we are on the horizon of the digital ID becoming the norm for everybody. And so, it's interesting to me just because, and I talked about this on the podcast, and just as a point before I move on, whatever your belief system might be, as far as like wanting to ban or something, or being anti this, anti that, what people need to understand is that when you are so gung-ho about wanting to ban stuff or control what other people do in the privacy of their home, that power that you give to the government to do that, it can also be used against you. Any power that you give to the government can be used against you. And so when I speak against these things, it's not because I don't think it's important for children to be, or effort be put into children being shielded from being exposed to certain things. It's understanding that, again, any power we give to the government will be used against us at some point. So it's best to take responsibility for our own lives the best we can, unless you just willing to accept boot up the ass. But I digress. Let's get a little bit more into the specifics of the Online Safety Act in the UK. So I'm gonna just go ahead and fall back on the AI overview here. It's pretty accurate, so let's just go over it real quick. The UK is implementing the Online Safety Act to enhance child protection online. This legislation places a legal duty on online platforms to protect children from harmful content. Key aspects include age assurance measures to prevent children from accessing illegal and harmful content, such as pornography and content promoting self-harm or suicide. Platforms must also provide mechanisms for users to report concerns and for parents to manage their children's online experience. Now, that last part is funny to me because really, parents already have the tools necessary to manage their children's online experience. One, don't give your 5-year-old a fucking iPhone. Don't give them an iPad. And then you have parental restriction settings on these various devices. Like I said, you can just not give them the devices. Also, you can monitor web traffic. I believe there's a way. That you can have like all the websites that are visited on your Wi-Fi where you can keep track of that. So if your kids were to start going to sites that you feel like they shouldn't be going to, you can keep track of that just by getting like your statement or documents of what websites are being visited over your Wi-Fi or internet connection. So the tools to protect children from, being exposed to these things to a certain extent, let's be real, to a certain extent are already there. But of course, this isn't about the children. Let's go a little bit further into this. So age assurance platforms must implement robust age verification or estimation techniques to prevent children from accessing harmful content. Protection from harmful content. Online services must take action to prevent children from encountering illegal content and content that is harmful, including pornography, self-harm, suicide, and eating disorder content, bullying, hateful content, and content promoting dangerous stunts or substance abuse. Now, right here, you can see how this can be used to ban, or not necessarily ban, but to try to justify blocking any sort of content for people. But like I said, the end game here, or the big part of it, is to normalize the digital ID. But not only is this meant to normalize the digital ID, and this is where the conspiracy or the agenda goes a little bit further. Now, of course, we all know that the benefit of having a digital ID for the government is that it makes it easier for them to track people's footprints and activities online. More and more, the online space is becoming like a second life for people. It used to be a time where being online, it was for weirdos or computer geeks or people who had work related to, computers and things like that. But now, it's safe to say that, like I said, the online has become a second life, a second world of sorts. And it's also become a sort of empowering world. And let me just break this down, because I think this is like the biggest thing that they want to do as far as like the agenda that they're pushing with this. I think what the governments around the world are concerned the most about is how the free flow of information has become completely out of their control. I mean, you got to think back. There was a time where if you wanted to, you want to get an update on global news, local news, you want to know about pop culture, science, health, whatever the case may be, where did you go? You went to CNN, you went to Fox News, you went to MSNBC, you went to the newspaper, TV. And we all know at this point that, legacy media has been completely controlled by a small group of people. Now, we can get specific about that group, but I don't think that's really necessary. But pretty much you could say that the media, for the most part, has been controlled by the government and the various arms of their power. But with the internet, the flow of information has gotten completely out of their control, or damn near completely out of their control. And I think that not only is this about normalizing the digital ID to make tracking people easier, I think it's also an attempt to gain back control over the flow of information. And like, let me give you a good example of what I'm talking about. Now, I got to be careful as I use this as an example, but we all remember COVID-19, and there were a lot of conflicting beliefs about COVID-19 during the height of the hysteria. Now, I don't have to go too, I don't have to get too specific about that. You guys know what I'm talking about. Even myself, I got in trouble because of expressing my views on COVID-19. Now, whatever side on that you take, whatever, that's not the point. The point is, what we saw was that there was a big backlash against the mainstream media narrative of what COVID-19 was and how we should deal with it. And that was the perfect example of the change in the flow of information and how it got into the hands of the people as opposed to legacy media. Not only that, we also see, different conflicts right now, the conflict in Gaza, the conflict in Ukraine. And again, this is another situation where the flow of information has gotten out of control, is now out of the control of legacy media and the government, and is in control of the people, and it's affecting people's perspective. People are now having access to more accurate information, better information, or even just opposing information to these mainstream narratives. I think that the government, they want to stop that. And let me give you, in fact, let me read a post real quick. I saw this great post that sums this up. I found this on the G board on 4chan, and he explains it very well how this is going to work. So the OP says, they're destroying the internet in real time. There won't be many web development jobs left. This isn't about kids, and it isn't about safety. Every country seems to be passing the same law all at once, and with a near 100% majority in their Congress, this is clearly coordinated. And that's a great point I forgot to mention. It's not like this is happening sporadically here and there. We've all noticed, like, at the same damn time, different major countries around the world are starting to implement these laws. Now, they're doing it in different ways. Again, Australia, by banning children under 16 from making social media profiles. The United States, we are doing, the little surface level porn age restriction laws. And the UK, dude, the UK, they are like at about 1982 from 1984. So they're always ahead of us when it comes to this authoritarian bullshit. But like, they're so close to just finishing the deal right there. But not only that, it's a good example of how completely separated the government is from the people at this point. I mean, it's so clear now that the government, they are just doing whatever they want to do. Like you can, like, this is, you look at this, you can tell we have no input as far as these policies, this legislation. I remember there was a petition in the UK, and it was one of the most signed petitions that they ever had on that site. And the government just pretty much wiped their ass with it and moved on. Of course, the petition was against these new policies and laws, and the government just doesn't give a damn. And like I said, bro, we're at the point where people need to accept, like, we got to get over this left versus right, blue versus red, Trump versus Biden. It's all bullshit. The government at this point is completely separated from the will of the people. And if people don't realize that, then we're going to be in a lot of trouble. And so he continues, he says, the fines for non-compliance are astronomical, like $20 million with no exceptions for small websites. Punishment for non-compliance includes jailing the owners of websites. The age verification APIs are not free. It makes running a website significantly more expensive than the cost of a VPS. Social media is defined so broadly that any forum or even a comment section is social media and requires age verification. Adult content is defined so broadly, it includes thoughts and opinions that have nothing to do with sexuality. Talking about world politics is adult content. Talking about economic conditions is adult content. And so this is the part that I didn't know about. So of course, they can't have these policies and laws without some sort of fines or enforcement. And he's saying that the fines are astronomical, up to $20 million. And basically, and this just further proves my point about one of the biggest goals of this agenda, which is the control of information. Because with these policies, again, it's not like these age verification things, like he said, are free. It's costly. It's going to make running a website even more expensive. And so if you can't afford to implement these age verification restrictions on your site, then you either going to have to run the risk of incurring some sort of big fine, being put in jail, or some other consequence, or just having to shut down. And so what could likely happen is that a lot of smaller websites, and I don't think this is going to happen quickly. I think it'll take time, but smaller websites run the risk of basically going out of service or going down, and then people are going to be completely reliant on the big social media platforms that are completely controlled by the government and these various tech billionaires and things like that. Websites like Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube especially. YouTube is one of the worst ones. Even Spotify is already implementing these age verification laws and things like that. And so you're going to be left with these big social media platforms. And so think about it again. Now let's go back to the examples that I use. COVID-19, the conflict in Gaza, or the conflict in Ukraine, anything. These are websites where if they decide that your opinion or your viewpoint is not in line with what they think is okay, then they can ban your account. They can give you on YouTube. You get YouTube strikes. I know I got a YouTube strike. I mean, I get YouTube strikes for bullshit all the time. Because they can just pick and choose. Like when you say harmful content, hate speech, adult content, it's vague, and you can use it any way you want to. And people like myself, we don't have any means of fighting back against being, wrongly accused of having this kind of content. But like he said, what'll basically happen is that it could very well be that these smaller websites start to go down, and then we're just left with the big social media platforms that are going to be in complete control of the narrative when it comes to different events in the world. So I think that they're trying to wrangle in back control of the flow of information and make online what TV used to be back in the day. I mean, just when I think back to our reliance on the television and newspaper for information and how much that has changed and what that would mean when we start going back. I mean, this is a big deal, people. And he continues, he says, no one will be able to operate a website anymore unless they have a legal team, criminal defense, indemnity for the owners, AI bots doing overzealous moderation, and millions of dollars for all the compliance tools they need to run. Not to mention the insurance they would need to carry to cover the inevitable data breach when the verification provider leaks everyone's faces and driver's license. And that's another concern. We just saw on the T app that all those women's information got leaked. And I know a lot of people, they don't like those women because they were exposing guys on this website. That's fine. But the point is that, now you're uploading your face or your ID to damn Spank Bang or Ed's videos. And then now there's a leak, and then people can connect your face like, oh man, this dude was looking up femboy twinks like me. And, that's one of the big concerns. Another big concerns about this is that, again, putting your face, your ID on these websites, and then if there's a leak, then boom. And this could also tie into blackmail. We already know about the Epstein situation and the blackmail conspiracy about that. So this is really deep as far as what this could be utilized for. And then he continues, this will end all independent websites and online communities. This will end most hosting companies. Only Fortune 500s will have websites. This will reduce web developer jobs to only a few megacorps. Now, there might be some exaggeration here, or I think that it's going to take a while before it gets really bad. But I think that it's going to be a slow crawl to what the destination that he's describing here, because we've only seen the internet get worse and worse when it comes to censorship, when it comes to, you know, trying to silence people, deplatforming people and things like that. It's only gotten worse. It hasn't gotten better. And there's no reason to think that what this guy is saying, what this man is saying here is, you know, some insane, unrealistic conspiracy. And in fact, today is, what is it? It's August 11th. On August 13th, YouTube is going to start implementing like an AI AIDS verification system. I mean, just what? So they're gonna have like an AI algorithm that tries to determine the age of its users, so that they know whether or not to put them through the age verification process. And you know, if this is handled by AI or algorithm, anybody can get tied up in it. You know, if you're a man child that loves My Little Pony and you watch nothing but that on YouTube, then you might get hit with AIDS verification notification or something like that. But this is terrible. I mean, there's no other way of putting it. This is it's heartbreaking, and I get it. You know, for me as a coomer, as a professional longtime masturbator, yes, I do care about it from like the porn angle, but that's not even the biggest loss here. Like, look, I got porn, I can get porn, and realistically, and this is the funny thing about it, is that children are like, they're still gonna be able to find ways to get porn if they really want it. Dude, when I think back to the lengths I went through to get my hands on porn or to masturbate, if at this point, just the way that the nature of the internet is, if they want it, they're gonna get it. You know, this is only gonna put up a few more walls. We are going to lose so much more than what we gain from this, and that's the tragedy of it. And what we lose is free speech online, and not only that, but being able to connect with other people and share stories and information, and to have, you know, to be able to discuss certain things, because we're headed to a point where you're just not going to be able to discuss some of these conspiracies or hidden truths or unpopular opinions. And like I said, man, just look at the UK, look at the United Kingdom as the blueprint of where they want the rest of the world to be eventually. I mean, UK is one of the most authoritarian nanny states, 1984 countries you will ever find. I mean, that country is a joke where people get arrested. I mean, they're already at the point where they have the police going to their house and arresting them over like mean tweets, or, you know, discussing grooming gangs, or being against mass migration and things like that. They're already there. So just look at them as the example of what they want us to be someday. But real quick, I also want to show this little article here. The UK's Online Safety Act is a license for censorship, and the rest of the world is following suit, by Taylor Lorenz. So whoever this is, like, she is straight up laying it out for what it really is. And so it says here, over the past 2 weeks, the UK has reportedly blocked internet users' access to everything from SpongeBob SquarePants gifts to Spotify playlists. Information about Joe Biden's police funding plan is being restricted, along with a post about an up-and-coming political party. Gamers say they have been unable to tweak colors in games such as Minecraft, and it's all because of a new AIDS verification law. So right here, she's listing off all the different ways that these laws have already affected people outside of the realm of pornography or gore videos, extreme violence, drug use. Pretty much the intended, or the stated intended purpose by the government. You can already see that people are being affected by this, even when they're just trying to look at regular, ordinary day stuff online. Since the child safety provisions contained within the Online Safety Act came into effect on the 25th of July, web service providers have been forced to institute highly effective, in quotation marks, AIDS verification measures to prevent children from accessing harmful and adult content. The penalty for failing to adequately comply with the act includes hefty fines and potential criminal action. But while the law and others like it claim to be narrowly focused on pornographic content and material that promotes suicide, self-harm, eating disorders, or abusive and hateful behavior, the subjective nature of the restrictions has led to mass censorship with the de facto removal of vast swaths of content from the web. Tech companies find it easier and cheaper to simply remove mass amounts of information than having something slip through and be deemed non-compliant. So this goes back to what that guy was talking about these fines and how people are just going to have to pretty much submit to censoring themselves and other people and covering up or getting rid of content because they don't want to get in trouble. The Online Safety Act is just the latest in a troubling global trend towards a more censored internet, within which governments and data harvesters have obliterated privacy, and everything you do online is logged, tracked, and monitored. Australia and Ireland have passed similar age verification measures. Denmark, Greece, Spain, France, and Italy have started testing a common age verification app, paving the way for potential mandatory EU-wide use. In the US, 11 states are seeking to pass age verification laws. In 2022, Louisiana passed a law requiring age verification on all websites on which at least a third of the content is of an adult nature. Since then, states including Ohio, Arizona, Wyoming, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, among others, have pursued similar legislation mandating age verification to access harmful or adult material. On a federal level, the Kids Online Safety Act, which would prevent all underage users from accessing certain content, was revived last year in Congress and could move forward any day. So they are trying their best to push this out. And so I'm going to skip a little bit here. And she says, many people mistakenly believe that only children will have to verify their identities online under such laws, but that is false. In order to determine who is a child, all users, no matter who they are, will be forced to turn over vast troves of valuable biometric data and forever link their offline identity to their online behavior. The data collected could then be weaponized by the government or bad actors and put internet users at significantly higher risk of crimes such as identity theft and fraud. And then it says here, age verification laws are also preventing people in the UK from accessing news and journalistic content. Immediately after the child safety rules came into effect, platforms began classifying breaking news of footage, war coverage, investigative journalism, and political protest material as harmful content. Even some content on Wikipedia could soon be blocked. The platform is challenging the law due to concerns its anonymous volunteers and readers could have their privacy violated. So I don't think I need to go more into this. I think you guys get the gist of it, and I just want to pivot slightly a bit to Australia. The blanket ban on anyone 16 and under being able to make social media profiles. There is a certain reason that kids are being targeted about this. So kids aren't just the excuse. They're not just a Trojan horse to get the rest of this bullshit in here. I think when you look at what Australia is doing, I believe that what's happening is that this new generation, they're not really like us. This new generation has been completely raised online. I didn't get access to the internet or have regular access to the internet until I was about 12. I say about 13, around 13. And it was dial up. Like the first 3 or 4 years of me using the internet, it was dial up. I was probably about 12, 13, somewhere around there. But this generation, this is the era of kids being handed iPhones and tablets at 4 or 5 years old, and expecting to have an iPhone in elementary school and middle school. When I think back to being much younger, being a teenager, when I was online, I wanted to find porn. I was looking for porn. I was trying to jack my little dick off. But the thing about it that I also remember is that it wasn't just porn that I was exposed to. That's when I started learning about different conspiracies. That's when I started to see different perspectives on life. It wasn't until I got online where I started seeing 9/11 conspiracies, you know, these long documentaries about alien life or, you know, atheism, you know, Zeitgeist, the movie, websites like 420 and 4chan and whatnot. Like just that, do you find Joe Rogan and he's always talking about different conspiracy, like that. You gotta understand, this is what the next generation of kids has been exposed to since they were like toddlers. Like this generation, like they're toddlers and getting online and discovering Joe Rogan experience and the conspiracies he talks about up there, or going to X and being exposed to different truths about reality that they would have never learned about otherwise. You know, it's kind of like when I went on X and they had those Hitler speeches that were actually like subtitled and translated with AI voice. When I was growing up, we didn't know what the hell he was saying, but now kids are going on X and seeing the, you know, things like the Hitler speeches translated and subtitled and with voice AI. I'm telling you, that is what they want to stop. That is what they want to control, because it's not just about like what we already know. It's about preventing the next generation of kids from being exposed to all this government corruption, these conspiracies, far too young. And when I say too young, I don't mean like it as a bad thing, but it's bad in relation to the government that wants to brainwash and program these kids. Bro, what the internet has done, and this is my last point, what the internet has done is that it's taken the exclusive brainwashing and programming rights from the government and has now put it in the hands of the internet and all the different voices there. Now, of course, I'm not saying it like the internet is perfect or that there aren't people out there that are talking out of their ass, that bullshit, that can be a bad influence. But the difference is that at least on the internet, you have many different perspectives. There's the opportunity to seek and find the truth and evidence and to come to your own conclusion. Whereas without it, when you're stuck with TV, when you're stuck with public school education, when you're stuck with parents that don't know shit and can't teach shit, then you're just gonna always be programmed according to what the state wants. At least with the internet, my generation and the newer generation has had the opportunity to learn new things that we would have never learned otherwise, and to start thinking for ourselves and to look at life from many different perspectives. And that's the tragedy of these laws, that is now being taken away from us. And I really don't know what it is that we can do to stop it. You know, I've heard people say they're going to boycott YouTube on the 13th. And I mean, come on, bro. At this point, you know, it's really messed up how this works though. It's the same thing as that Walmart formula. Walmart comes in and then they sell their stuff at a much lower price than local businesses. Then the local businesses go out of business. And then now Walmart, they start raising their prices and they stop being open 24 hours a day. But now all those smaller businesses are still gone. And that's kind of what we're going to see with the internet. You know, these big web companies, these big websites are going to be some of the few that are able to survive, while a lot of smaller ones end up going down. You know, and again, man, it's fucked up, but I don't want to be too doom and gloom, but I just don't think there's much we can do about it, man. Like I said, we are on the road to 1984. And I'm just thankful that I live in America, where because of the Constitution, it's going to take them a lot longer to be able to, you know, to put us in the position that the UK is in right now. But we're headed there. They're working on it. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and I will see you on the next. So, ciao, man.